So while waiting for our parts for our carbs, I thought I'd cover some things off, and while we've got the opportunity, take a look underneath the RD500 and have a look round it, and I'll show you a few things about why the RD500 was designed the way it was. Yeah, so stay with me and we'll have a look into it. So we'll start at the front. As you can see what we've got here. RD front wheel, 16-inch, very traditional. The RG's got it, the NS has got it, my VF 1000R's got one. Loads of bikes had 16-inch front wheels. Loads of stuff around this time. Big fat tyre, that is the standard size front tyre. It's a 120/80 V16. Dual ventilated discs, non-floating type on this bike. Dual calipers obviously, and they are opposed piston. So you've got a piston this side and a piston that side. These brakes do work okay with those and those discs. They're fine for this bike, for this era. Let's talk about the anti-dive. Now, anti-dive, as a lot of bikes from this era again had. If you go back to the 70s, a lot of forks on bikes, or 70s, early 80s, they didn't have adjustable forks. They had damper rods and stuff like that in them, but they weren't adjustable. And when you compare it to today's modern forks, you've got rebound, high speed, low speed, compression damping, all these sort of stuff. This was, you know, manufacturers were just trying to work out ways of stopping forks from diving too much. And this was, I suppose, a very early iteration of compression damping. Now, they did have damper rods in them, but this was adjustable. So it was a bit of an experiment, and they were just developing ideas at the time. It didn't last long. By the 90s, it had gone, and and we'd start getting more adjustable forks with compression and rebound damping. But this is what this is. It didn't work that well. It wasn't that successful. But that is why that's there. I've taken it off because I've put progressive springs in these forks, and they work much better. Obviously, the more the bike dives, the more the progressive springs, push it back, and that's how it works. Moving on back onto the bike, you can see the radiator just there. It's not a massive radiator considering it's got 4 pots to cool. Up here, just to show you up here, we've got this is the 2-stroke tank. Just there, that's a 2-stroke tank just here, and then coming down here, this is a sub tank, so 2-stroke goes from the big tank into this sub tank, and then from there it goes all the way down into the oil pump. This is the interesting bit. This is the RD, this is the engine for the RD, which is effectively 2 engines in one. It's not like the RG, which was built, it's a square 4, but it was designed as 1 engine. This is actually 2 engines that Yamaha put together. It's not, it says V4, it's not a true V4. Most of you know that, but some people might not. It's got 2 cranks, one up here and then one down here. In the middle of it runs a balancer shaft, and you've got an inlet here which goes directly. It's a reed valve type induction on here, but this one goes into the cylinder and not into the crank as it would on most bikes. So the pistons inside have actually got ports in the skirts of the pistons of the rear cylinders, whereas the lower cylinder, the inlet goes straight into the crank. There's not a lot of space in here, and that's probably why it was done like that. Underneath here you can see that's the power valve pulley there. The servo for it is in there, that little black box, but the power valve pulley is there. So there's a rod at the back of that pulley, there's one here, and then there's another rod that goes from the other side of the pulley, which goes to the power valves on these cylinders. And then you've got the power valve cables, which are attached to the pulley, which are attached to the servo, along with another cable just there, which goes to the oil pump, the 2-stroke oil pump, because there's 2 oil pumps fitted on this bike, in this engine. There's the 2-stroke oil pump, so this is 2-stroke feed, and then you've got another pump which is behind all this lot, and that pumps engine oil through a pipe that goes at the back and then to the side, and I'll show you that, to feed this crank, because it's not in effectively the sump, so it's pumped up there. The 2-stroke pump is right down there. I'll see if you can see it. I'll zoom in. He says, there it is. And this bike is fitted, which I did underneath here, and I'll show you a picture, with check valves, because these 2-stroke pumps at the back of here, you can't really service them, and things like, you know, I've never had one apart. I don't even think you can get them apart, but if it's traditionally like normal 2-stroke pumps, they have lots of ball bearings and springs and oil galleys and things like that, and springs wear, you know, they get soft over time. The little ball bearings that are attached to the springs or push on the springs to close off galleys become soft, and oil can get past and leak. And there's 4 very thin lines, and you can see them just here, and they run, this is just a cover, they run round here into here, and then through there, and into the cylinders. Now, through capillary action, if that 2-stroke pump leaks, oil can get in, and it will always go into the lowest cylinder, which is normally this left one here because of the side stands. So if you were to leave one of these over time with a knackered oil pump, oil could leak into that lower cylinder. It could collect into the crankcase, and it does also collect in the exhaust. And so you've got a risk of, imagine this, having a leaky fuel, leaky oil, all collects in the crank. You go to start it up, boom, you hydraulic your bike. This has got check valves on here, and there's 4 check valves that I think were normally fitted to a Yamaha outboard engine. It might have been even on a jet ski or something like that, but I've got 4 of them, fitted them to here, which prevents that from happening, because the oil pumps do wear over time. This is actually the clutch cable here. Underneath here there's an arm that rotates, and it's on a cam under this thing here, and it pushes a big long steel pin that runs through the centre of the gearbox in and out, and you can remove that pin. And then moving down the bike, you can see we've got the back end with an 18-inch rear tyre on there, and I think that's a 130/90 maybe tyre size on the back there. I'm not 100% certain. Suspension, rear shocker, is actually between the 2 exhausts, and I'll show you where that is. And it runs along the bottom of the engine. This model, I'll get into that. Let's get up here. There's basically about 4 models of 500 LCs. You've got the RZV 500N, you've got the RZV 500R, you've got the RD500LC 47X, and you've got the RD500LC 1GE, and this is a 1GE. This is a slightly later model than the 47X in the UK and Europe. This was actually a German bike. It's the same as a UK bike, but there are some differences between the 47X and the 1GE. I'm not going to really go into too much detail on it. There's a couple of bits like this. This is 1GE. You can denote 1GE by this very easily, and by these tailpipes here. These are longer on the 1GE than they were on the 47X. The other differences for the 47X and the 1GEs, there's the balancer shaft, which runs between this crank and this crank, was powered by the front cylinders on the 47X, and it was obviously there to dampen vibration and stuff like that. And eventually on this bike it was slightly re-engineered, and it runs off the rear cylinders, which apparently makes it smoother. I've had a 47X. I didn't even really know about it at the time, so I can't tell you if it's any smoother or not. So that's this side of the bike. Up here quickly, that's part of the airbox, thermostat housing, power valve cables, clutch cable, and then you've got some throttle cables and stuff. You've obviously got two this side. You've got choke cables as well, which fit into the choke lever actually directly, and then they're actually attached to the carbs. So that's pretty much there. You've got upper right cylinder, upper left cylinder, and these exhausts, where they come out here and here, immediately cross over just here, and the left is actually the right tailpipe, and the right cylinder is actually the left tailpipe. So right cylinder, left cylinder. Down on the back here, this is an aftermarket disc because mine was out of limits, so but that's okay, it works fine. Standard caliper, which is very similar to the front, so opposed piston caliper. And then on this side of the bike, again from up here, coolant and coolant top up radiator there, and you can see it just underneath there. Then you've got the CDI and power valve controller down here. Again, same setup. Excuse me, my dog's going mad. Upper right cylinder inlet and lower left cylinder inlet. Then you've got a water pump housing down here. Clutch. This is the oil that I was telling you about. This is engine oil. It goes to the crank here. So it gets pumped into here, then sprayed around the bearings and necessary in there. This little thing here, which seems to run to nowhere, is your two-stroke oil pump bleed. So that you can just pulls off, and you can then bleed your two-stroke oil pump from there. Kickstart, which folds away nicely. I do actually like these kickstarts on these. And then yeah, that's about it. So there you go. So yeah, I'll quickly go through these bikes and the design philosophy, because I know there's been a lot of chat on the group about the RD500LC was a much better bike, blah blah blah. I'm not arguing, but I think you're comparing apples and oranges. The RD500 was a race replica. We'd got the NS, we'd got the RD, and we'd got the RG. This bike was a collection of parts put together to look like a race bike, and it got the, you know, these two engines that were amalgamated together in a fashion. It got a lot of technology from the time, you know, 16-inch front wheels, anti-dies, all that sort of stuff. When I talk about, or when we talk about the RD500LC, which is a great bike in itself, and I had the power. I've not had the 350LC. I had the YPVS version, the RD350, yeah, 31k, and I much prefer the RD500 because it just feels a bit more. This has also been fitted with power valve, so it gives you, you know, a bit more torque on the lower end than the 350LC, although they were much improved over the previous bike. So you can't compare this to a 350LC, and I think if you are, you're looking through it through rose-tinted spectacles, because I can't imagine you'd go out and buy an RD500 and then go, actually, I don't like it, I'm going to have an RD350LC instead. I can't imagine. I'm not having to go at the RD350LC. They are fantastic bikes. But anyway, I hope that's given you a bit of an idea and answered some of the questions on these bikes. Obviously, there's going to be more people out there, or better, or more knowledgeable people out there than me. I'm just putting my 2 penneth worth in there. This bike, it's in a world of its own. The design, the way it came out, it was done as a race replica, and that was it. I don't think it was a follow-on to the RD350LCs of the world at all. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it answers all my questions. And if you've got any more questions, or you know something that I don't, or something that's interesting, please post a comment on the in the comments. But I just want to say thanks for watching. I want to give a shout out to a chap called Ray Shaw for buying me or giving me a super thanks. I went and bought himself a coffee with it. Cheers, mate. This is a cup of tea, obviously. It's all a massive help, and yeah, I appreciate everybody that subscribes, likes, comments, etc. So if you do want to see more content like this, make sure if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, give us a like, leave us a comment, get involved in the chat. So I'll stick a couple of videos up here. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.